My name is Amber. I'm 35 years old, and until last month, my life as a graphic designer in Boston was peaceful and predictable. Then came that 2 a.m. knock that shattered everything. There stood Katie, my baby sister, face bruised, arm twisted unnaturally, with Lily, her disabled 7-year-old daughter, in a wheelchair. My phone buzzed with a text from Mum. Don't save that cripple. I had seconds to decide. In the end, I chose humanity over family loyalty. While I share this heartbreaking story, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe to follow our journey. Nobody should ever have to choose between family and their own conscience. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Massachusetts, appearances always mattered more than reality. My mother, Sarah Thompson, was obsessed with perfection. Our house was spotless, our grades exemplary, and our smiles practiced until they looked natural in family photos. But behind closed doors, the pressure was suffocating. Stand up straight, Amber. No one will take you seriously with that posture, Mum would say at the breakfast table, while Dad silently read his newspaper. Dad was the quiet counterbalance to Mum's controlling nature. He worked long hours at his accounting firm, but made time for small moments of normalcy. He'd sneak us ice cream before dinner or take us to the park when Mum was at her book club. His sudden heart attack when I was 19 and Katie was 14 left a void that Mum filled with even more rigid expectations. The inheritance Dad left was modest but meaningful. He had set up trust funds for both Katie and me, ensuring we would have some financial independence. Mum never forgave him for this final act of rebellion against her control. Katie was always the good daughter. Where I questioned and argued, Katie smiled and complied. She had Mum's delicate features and natural grace, making her the perfect canvas for Mum's aspirations. Why can't you be more like your sister? Became Mum's refrain whenever I challenged her. The irony was that Katie secretly admired my defiance. I wish I could stand up to her like you do, Katie whispered to me once after Mom had spent an hour criticizing my college choices. I left for college as soon as I could, choosing Boston University partly for its art program and partly for the 3-hour drive that separated me from home. I built a life there, making friends who knew nothing about my family dynamics and creating a peaceful space where no one monitored my posture or meal choices. Katie stayed local, attending community college while living at home. She met Justin Barnes during her 2nd year. He was charming, ambitious, and most importantly to Mum, from a good family. Their courtship was swift and traditional, exactly as Mum had scripted it. Justin is such a gentleman, Mum would gush during our Sunday phone calls. He always opens doors for Katie and brings me flowers. That's how you know someone was raised right. I attended their wedding when Katie was 22, watching my sister smile that practiced smile as she walked down the aisle. Justin looked handsome in his tuxedo, but something about his possessive grip on Katie's waist during photos made me uneasy. I pushed the feeling aside, telling myself it was just lingering resentment toward anything Mum approved of. The first year of their marriage seemed perfect, from the carefully curated social media posts, the honeymoon in Cancun, the new suburban house with the white picket fence, the announcement of Katie's pregnancy complete with Justin cradling her barely there bump. Then Lily was born and everything changed. The doctors diagnosed cerebral palsy when Lily was 10 months old. The condition affected her left side significantly, making walking impossible without assistance. The prognosis included lifelong mobility challenges, potential learning disabilities, and regular medical interventions. Mum's reaction was swift and brutal. There must be something wrong with Katie's genes, she told me during a rare visit home. Our family has never had any defects. The word defects hung in the air between us, ugly and sharp. I wanted to defend my niece, to explain that cerebral palsy wasn't a defect, but a condition that happened during brain development. But the clinical explanation died on my lips when I saw Mum refusing to hold Lily during family dinner. Justin stuck around for another year, going through the motions of being a supportive husband and father. Then one day, Katie called me sobbing. Justin had packed his things while she was at Lily's physical therapy appointment. He left a note saying he hadn't signed up for this kind of life and moved to Seattle with his administrative assistant. Mom blamed Katie. You should have tried harder to make him happy, she said during a family dinner that Katie had dragged herself to despite exhaustion. Men need attention too. I watched Katie shrink into herself, nodding as she spooned pureed food into Lily's mouth. The divorce was quick but messy, with Justin fighting to minimize his child support payments by arguing that Lily's condition required more than a reasonable financial contribution. After the divorce, Katie withdrew. Our weekly calls became monthly, then quarterly. She moved into a smaller apartment and took a part-time job at a local bookstore that allowed her to bring Lily with her. I sent birthday and Christmas gifts, but rarely received acknowledgement beyond a quick text. I told myself she was just busy, overwhelmed with single-parenting a child with special needs. Then Katie met Greg Miller through an online support group for parents of children with disabilities. His son had autism, he said, and he understood the challenges Katie faced. Within months, he was a fixture in her social media posts, always smiling, always helpful. Greg is a godsend, Katie told me during a rare phone call. He knows exactly what to do when Lily has a meltdown, and Mum actually approves for once. That should have been my first warning sign. Mum's approval had never aligned with healthy relationships in our family. The last time I visited them, about 8 months ago, I noticed subtle changes. Katie checked her phone constantly, texting Greg her whereabouts. She asked his permission before accepting my invitation to lunch. Lily, normally chatty and curious, was subdued, flinching when Greg entered the room. When I tried to talk to Katie about it, she brushed off my concerns. "You don't understand what it's like to raise a child with special needs," she said, her voice flat. "Greg is just protective because so many people have hurt us." I left with a nagging feeling that something was wrong, but without enough concrete evidence to push harder. I sent more frequent texts, suggested video calls that were always postponed, and even considered driving down for a surprise visit. But work deadlines and the memory of Katie's defensiveness held me back. That was my mistake, one that would cost my sister and niece months of suffering before that fateful night at my door. My life in Boston had settled into a comfortable routine. I had built a successful career as a graphic designer, specializing in branding for tech startups. My loft apartment in South End was my sanctuary, filled with art supplies, houseplants, and the vintage record player I'd splurged on after landing a major client. That Tuesday had been particularly productive. I'd finalized designs for a new client and received glowing feedback. To celebrate, I'd treated myself to take out from my favorite Thai restaurant and opened a nice bottle of wine. The evening stretched before me peacefully as I sketched ideas for a personal project, while a jazz playlist hummed softly in the background. Around midnight, I decided to call it a night. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and changed into my favorite oversized t-shirt and sleep shorts. The spring night was mild, so I left the bedroom window cracked open, enjoying the distant city sounds as I drifted off to sleep. The knocking jolted me awake. At first I thought I'd dreamed it, but then it came again, more urgent this time. My phone showed 2:17 a.m. No one in my circle would show up unannounced at this hour. A mixture of curiosity and apprehension pulled me out of bed. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911 if necessary, and crept to the door. Through the peephole, I could make out a hunched figure. Something about the posture was familiar. "Who is it?" I called, finger hovering over the emergency call button. "Amber, please," came the whispered reply. "It's Katie." My hands fumbled with the locks, heart racing. When I finally swung the door open, the hallway light illuminated a scene from a nightmare. Katie stood swaying slightly, one arm cradled against her chest at an unnatural angle. Her face was a map of violence, with her left eye swollen shut. Her lips split and crusted with dried blood and purplish bruises blooming across her cheekbone. She wore only a thin t-shirt and jeans despite the cool spring night, and both were stained with what looked like blood. Beside her, slumped in a child-sized wheelchair, was Lily. My niece's normally bright eyes were dull with exhaustion, her small body trembling despite the blanket wrapped around her. A nasty bruise darkened her temple, and she clutched a tattered stuffed rabbit I'd given her for her 4th birthday. "He found my emergency money," Katie whispered, her voice hoarse. We had nowhere else to go. I reached for them just as my phone buzzed in my hand. A text message from my mother illuminated the screen. "I know Katie will come to you. Don't save that cripple. Let Greg bring them home. Don't ruin everything." The cruelty of the words made my stomach lurch. In that moment, staring at my battered sister and traumatized niece, any lingering sense of familial obligation to my mother evaporated. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. "You're safe now." Katie's legs gave out as soon as she crossed the threshold. I caught her before she hit the floor, guiding her to my couch while maneuvering Lily's wheelchair with my other hand. The small family overnight bag Katie had been clutching fell to the floor, its meager contents spilling out, telling the story of a hasty escape. As I locked the door behind us, I knew with absolute certainty that I had just drawn a line that would forever divide my life into before and after. Whatever came next, there was no going back. My hands trembled as I gathered first aid supplies from my bathroom. The weight of what was happening, of what had happened, pressed against my chest until breathing became a conscious effort. I filled a bowl with warm water and grabbed clean washcloths, antiseptic ointment, and the emergency kit I kept under the sink. When I returned to the living room, Katie sat exactly where I'd left her, staring blankly ahead. Lily had fallen asleep in her wheelchair, her breathing shallow but steady. The silence felt fragile, as if the wrong word might shatter whatever strength had brought them to my door. I knelt before my sister and gently began cleaning the dried blood from her face. "Your arm needs a doctor," I said quietly, noting the unnatural angle and swelling. "No hospitals," Katie whispered, eyes darting to the door. "He'll find us." "Who, Katie? Greg?" She nodded, wincing as I dabbed antiseptic on her split lip. "Did he do this to you, to Lily?" Katie's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't always like this. In the beginning, he was so kind, so understanding about Lily. No one had ever been that way except you." I continued cleaning her wounds, giving her space to tell her story at her own pace. It started small, criticizing how I parented Lily, suggesting her therapies were a waste of money. Then he moved in and things changed faster. Katie's voice was monotone, as if she were reciting something memorized. He controlled our finances, said I couldn't manage money properly. He isolated us from friends, saying they judged him for dating a woman with baggage. The word made me flinch. "Mom knew," Katie continued. "She saw the bruises once when we visited. She told me I should be grateful anyone wanted me given my situation." Rage boiled inside me. "When did he start hurting Lily?" Katie's face crumpled. 3 months ago, she spilled her drink at dinner. He said she did it on purpose, that I was raising her to be manipulative. He grabbed her arm so hard it bruised. I tried to stop him and he pushed me into the wall. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, fighting to keep accusation from my voice. "He monitored my phone. He had tracking apps installed, and he threatened to..." Katie trailed off, looking at Lily. "He said if I ever tried to leave, he'd make sure I lost custody, that he'd tell everyone I was an unfit mother who couldn't handle a special needs child." As Katie spoke, my phone kept buzzing. Text after text from our mother. "Katie needs to come home now. You've always tried to turn her against me. Greg is worried sick. He just wants his family back. That child needs specialized care you can't provide." I silenced the phone and turned my attention to Lily, who had woken up and was watching us with wide, fearful eyes. "Hey, Lily Bear," I said softly, using my old nickname for her. "You're at Auntie Amber's house. Would you like some hot chocolate?" Lily looked to her mother for permission, another red flag. "It's okay, sweetheart," Katie assured her. "We're safe here." As I prepared hot chocolate in the kitchen, I could hear Katie explaining to Lily in simple terms that they would be staying with me for a while. The child's response broke my heart. "Is Greg going to find us again? He said bad girls can't hide forever." I returned with the hot chocolate to find Katie trying to comfort Lily despite her own injuries. I helped settle them into my spare bedroom, making a mental note to get proper accessibility equipment for Lily as soon as possible. My apartment wasn't designed for someone with mobility challenges. As I tucked them in, Katie grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "He'll come looking for us," she whispered, fear etching lines around her eyes. "And Mum will help him." I squeezed her hand. "I won't let anyone hurt you again, either of you." Once they were asleep, I returned to my living room and stared at my phone. The decision seemed to make itself. I dialed 911. "I need to report a domestic violence situation," I said when the operator answered. "My sister and her disabled daughter have fled an abusive home. They need protection, and her injuries require medical attention." As I gave the details, I knew I was setting in motion events that would irrevocably change all our lives. By the time I hung up, Katie stood in the hallway, her good arm braced against the wall for support. "You called the police," she said. "Not a question." I nodded. "We need to protect Lily, and your arm needs a doctor." For a moment, I thought she might bolt. Then her shoulders sagged. "I'm so tired of being afraid," she whispered. "But what if they don't believe me? What if Greg convinces them I'm crazy? He's so good at appearing normal to everyone else." I crossed the room and gently led her back to the couch. "Then we'll make them listen. I'm not Mom Katie. I believe you, and I'm not going anywhere." The police arrived 45 minutes later. Officer Rivera, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, and Officer Thompson, a younger man who reminded me uncomfortably of our father. They took preliminary statements while waiting for the paramedics I'd also requested. Katie sat rigid on my couch, answering questions in a monotone voice. Yes, her boyfriend Greg Miller had done this. Yes, it had happened before. No, she hadn't reported previous incidents. Yes, he had also been physically and verbally abusive to her disabled daughter. Officer Rivera photographed Katie's injuries and made notes about Lily, who remained asleep in my spare room. I showed them the text from my mother, which Officer Thompson documented with raised eyebrows. "Your own mother wrote these?" he asked, unable to mask his surprise. I nodded. She's always been difficult, but her relationship with Greg has made it worse. The paramedics arrived and confirmed what I'd suspected. Katie's arm was broken and she needed hospital treatment. They were discussing transport options when a loud pounding at my door made everyone freeze. "Police, open up," Officer Rivera called, hand moving to her weapon. "Amber, I know Katie's in there. Open the damn door." The voice was male, slurred with what sounded like alcohol, but attempting to project concern. Officer Thompson opened the door to reveal Greg Miller. In person, he was unremarkable average height, with thinning brown hair and the beginnings of a beer belly. Nothing about him screamed abuser, which made him all the more dangerous. "Thank God you're here, officers," Greg said, his demeanor instantly shifting to concerned boyfriend. "My girlfriend has been having mental health episodes. She sometimes hurts herself during these episodes and blames me. I've been trying to get her help, but she ran off with our daughter. I've been worried sick." The practiced ease of his lie sent chills down my spine. I glanced at Katie, who had shrunk into herself, eyes downcast in a posture I recognized from our childhood, when Mum's criticism became too much to bear. "Sir, we're investigating allegations of domestic violence," Officer Rivera stated firmly. "I'm going to need you to step back and provide identification." Greg produced his wallet smoothly. "Of course, officer. I want to cooperate fully. Katie needs professional help, not accusations against me. Her condition has been deteriorating since her daughter's diagnosis. The stress of raising a disabled child has triggered these delusions." From the hallway to my bedroom came the sound of Lily's wheelchair. The child had awakened and navigated herself to the living room, freezing when she saw Greg. The transformation was immediate and heartbreaking. Lily's face drained of colour and she began trembling violently, her small hands gripping the wheelchair arms so tightly her knuckles turned white. "No, no, no," she whimpered, trying to back the wheelchair away. "Please don't hurt Mommy again." Greg's mask slipped for just a second, rage flickering across his features before he composed himself. "Lily, sweetheart, you know I'd never hurt Mommy. Remember what we talked about Mommy's confused thinking?" Officer Thompson moved subtly to position himself between Greg and Lily, while Officer Rivera continued observing the interaction. "Sir, did you send these text messages to Ms. Thompson's phone?" Rivera asked, showing Greg Katie's phone with his threatening messages displayed. "I never sent those," Greg said smoothly. "Katie sometimes texts herself from my phone when I'm sleeping to create evidence against me. Like I said, she needs help, not enablers." He shot me an accusatory look. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was seeing my sister cowering, or Lily's terror, or just the sheer audacity of this man standing in my home spinning lies. I stepped forward. "My sister has a broken arm and multiple contusions. My niece has bruising consistent with being grabbed forcefully. They fled in the middle of the night with barely any possessions. Does that sound like a mental health episode to you, or does it sound like two people escaping violence?" Greg's eyes narrowed. "You don't know anything about our life. Katie's always painting me as the villain to her family. Tell them, Katie. Tell them how you throw things during arguments, how you neglect Lily's exercises and then blame me when she doesn't progress." Katie looked up, then something hardening in her expression. "I have videos," she whispered. Every head in the room turned toward her. "What was that?" Officer Rivera asked gently. "I have videos," Katie repeated, stronger now. "After the first time he hurt Lily, I hid my old phone behind the bookshelf in the living room. It captured everything in that room." Greg lunged toward Katie, forgetting himself entirely. "You lying bitch!" Officer Thompson intercepted him, restraining him, as Officer Rivera stepped between Greg and Katie. "Sir, you need to calm down now," Rivera warned. The commotion brought another visitor to my door, which the paramedics had left ajar. My mother stood in the hallway, her face set in the disapproving expression I knew all too well. "What on earth is going on here?" she demanded, stepping inside uninvited. "Amber, I told you not to interfere." Officer Rivera turned. "Ma'am, who are you?" "I'm Sarah Thompson, Katie and Amber's mother, and I'm here to take my daughter and granddaughter home where they belong." Lily's reaction to my mother was almost as severe as her fear of Greg. She wheeled herself behind my legs, small hands clutching at my pajama pants. "Mrs. Thompson," Officer Rivera said, We're in the middle of a domestic violence investigation. Your daughter has serious injuries consistent with assault." My mother waved a dismissive hand. Katie has always been dramatic. She likely hurt herself to get attention. She's been unstable since Lily was born with her condition. The way she said condition, like it was something shameful, made my blood boil. "Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Katie has a broken arm. Lily has bruises. Are you seriously suggesting they did this to themselves?" "You always take her side, Amber," my mother snapped. "Since you were children encouraging her rebellion. Greg has been nothing but supportive of Katie and that child. He accepts her despite everything." "Her name is Lily," I said through gritted teeth. "Your granddaughter has a name." Officer Rivera intervened. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside while we continue our investigation." "This is ridiculous," my mother huffed. "Greg, tell them what Katie's really like." But Greg's mask had slipped completely. As Officer Thompson checked Katie's phone, he found multiple threatening messages, including explicit threats to harm Lily if Katie ever tried to leave. "Gregory Miller, you're under arrest for domestic assault," Officer Thompson announced, producing handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." As Greg was led away, still protesting his innocence and throwing accusations at Katie, my mother's face contorted with rage. "Now look what you've done," she hissed at me. "You've destroyed another family." I met her gaze steadily. "No, Mum, you and Greg did that. Katie and Lily deserve better than what either of you offered them." My mother turned to Katie, who was now being attended to by the paramedics. "If you go through with this, you're no longer my daughter. I won't support this charade." Katie looked up, pain evident in her eyes, but also something new, a spark of defiance I hadn't seen since we were children. "Then I guess I don't have a mother anymore." Sarah Thompson stormed out, leaving a weighted silence behind her. The paramedics resumed preparing Katie for transport, and Officer Rivera assured us they would begin processing the emergency protective order immediately. As they left with Katie on a stretcher, Lily's small voice came from behind me. "Are we really safe now, Aunt Amber?" I knelt to her level, meeting those wise eyes that had seen too much for someone so young. "We're going to make sure of it, Lily Bear. That's a promise." The following days blurred together in a whirlwind of hospital visits, police statements, and hastily arranged accommodations. Katie's injuries were extensive, the broken arm being just the most visible. X-rays revealed old fractures that had healed improperly, testament to the ongoing abuse she had endured. My spare bedroom, once a makeshift office, transformed into a shared space for Katie and Lily. I pushed my drafting table against one wall and purchased a second twin bed to place beside the existing one. The bathroom required more substantial modifications, which I tackled with determination, if not skill. "You don't have to do all this," Katie said on their third morning with me watching as I installed grab bars beside the toilet. "I want to," I replied, simply testing the stability of my work. "Besides, these are improvements that should have been standard anyway." Lily observed my efforts with curious eyes, occasionally offering suggestions from her 7-year-old perspective. "The bar should be lower for kids like me," she pointed out reasonably. I smiled at her. "You're absolutely right, Lily. Good design should work for everyone." I contacted my supervisor at the design firm, explaining the situation in broad strokes. Mark, who had always been understanding, immediately arranged for me to work remotely for the foreseeable future. "Family comes first," he said. "Just keep hitting your deadlines and we'll make it work." The legal process proved more complicated. Jessica Turner, a lawyer specializing in domestic violence cases, agreed to meet with us at my apartment to accommodate Lily's needs. She arrived with a portfolio tucked under one arm and kind but determined eyes behind stylish glasses. "The emergency protective order will keep Greg away for now," she explained, spreading documents across my dining table. "But we need to file for a permanent restraining order and address custody issues." "Custody?" Katie echoed, fear creeping back into her voice. "But Greg isn't Lily's father." Jessica nodded. "True, but he could still attempt to claim custodial rights as a de facto parent, especially if your mother supports his claim. We need to be proactive." Katie's phone, which we had transferred to a new number, buzzed continuously with messages from our mother. Each one was more manipulative than the last. "Katie, you're making a terrible mistake. Greg has agreed to forgive you if you come home now. Do you really think you can raise Lily alone? Be reasonable. The neighbors are talking. Everyone thinks you've had another breakdown." I encouraged Katie to document every message but not respond. Jessica suggested filing for a restraining order against our mother as well, but Katie wasn't ready for that step yet. "She's still our mum," she said softly. "Maybe once things calm down." I bit back my skepticism, recognizing that Katie needed to process these changes at her own pace. Lily's adjustment to our new living arrangement came with its own challenges. Nightmares woke her screaming nearly every night. She feared strangers, especially men, and would wheel herself into corners when delivery people came to the door. Dr. Patel, a child psychologist specializing in trauma, began sessions with Lily in our living room. She also recommended family therapy for Katie and Lily, with occasional sessions including me. Trauma affects the entire family system, she explained gently. Healing happens in relationship. The first few therapy sessions were heart-wrenching. Lily drew pictures of dark figures looming over smaller ones. Katie struggled to discuss Greg's abuse without minimizing or blaming herself. I found myself fighting back rage that threatened to overwhelm my ability to support them. It's normal to feel angry, Dr. Patel assured me during a private consultation. The challenge is channeling that anger into productive action rather than letting it consume you. Between therapy sessions, legal meetings, and work deadlines, I sought small ways to connect with Lily. I discovered she loved art, so I set up a small easel at her height and stocked up on washable paints. We spent evenings creating colourful messes together, Katie occasionally joining us with her non-casted arm. One evening, as we painted what Lily described as happy monsters, she looked up at me thoughtfully. "Aunt Amber, are you scared of Greg too?" The question caught me off guard. Sometimes, I admitted, choosing honesty. But being scared doesn't mean we can't be brave too. Lily considered this, adding bright yellow spikes to her monster. "My monster isn't scared of anything. He protects people who can't walk good like me." "That's a wonderful monster," I said, swallowing the lump in my throat. Everyone needs protectors sometimes. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep, Katie and I sat on my tiny balcony, watching city lights flicker against the darkening sky. "She's never opened up like that before," Katie said. "Not with anyone but me." I sipped my tea, letting the warm spring air wash over us. Kids are resilient when they feel safe. Katie's eyes filled with tears. "I failed her, Amber. I should have left sooner." "Hey," I said firmly, taking her good hand in mine. "You did leave. That takes incredible courage. And now we focus on moving forward, not looking back." Our moment of peace was interrupted by my phone ringing, the screen displaying unknown caller. I answered cautiously. "Is this Amber Thompson?" a male voice asked. "Who's calling?" I countered. "This is Paul Ramirez, Greg Miller's friend. I just want you to know that Greg knows what you're doing. He has friends everywhere. You might want to rethink the path you're on." I ended the call, and immediately hands shaking. "What is it?" Katie asked, alarmed by my expression. "Nothing important." I lied, not wanting to add to her fears. But that night, I double-checked every lock and researched security systems online. The next day, Julia Martinez, my downstairs neighbor, knocked on my door with a plate of homemade empanadas and a friendly smile. "I noticed you have visitors," she said, glancing at Lily, who was watching us cautiously from her wheelchair. "My son Leon is about her age. He'd love a new friend if she's staying a while." I introduced her to Katie and Lily, gratitude washing over me at this simple kindness. "Leon's school has an excellent inclusion program," Julia mentioned as she was leaving. "If you're looking for options." That casual offer opened another avenue we hadn't considered schooling for Lily. Her previous school was too far away now, and returning to that district would put her back in Greg's reach. As we navigated these practical matters, a support network began forming around us. Julia connected us with the school administrator. My colleague Mark's wife Dana, a nurse, offered medical advice and equipment recommendations. The local domestic violence support group welcomed Katie with open arms. Small kindnesses appeared when we needed them most, like the anonymous delivery of a custom ramp for my front steps, or the neighbour who wordlessly shoveled our walkway after an unseasonable April snow. Through it all, Katie gradually straightened her shoulders, making eye contact more frequently, voicing her opinions more confidently. Lily's nightmares became less frequent, her smile appearing more readily. We were building something new from the wreckage of what Greg and our mother had destroyed. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was ours. And it was real. The morning of the first court hearing dawned clear and cool. Katie stood before my bedroom mirror, adjusting the professional-looking blouse we'd purchased for the occasion. Her arm remained in a cast, but the visible bruises on her face had faded to yellowish smudges that could be partially concealed with makeup. "What if they don't believe me?" she whispered, smoothing non-existent wrinkles from her skirt. "They will," I assured her, though my own stomach churned with anxiety. "We have evidence, Katie. Photos, medical records, witness statements, your videos. The videos Katie had secretly recorded had been a game changer. Though Greg had found and destroyed her hidden phone, she had already backed up the footage to a cloud account he didn't know about. The recordings clearly showed his escalating abuse toward both Katie and Lily, contradicting his claims of Katie's mental instability. Julia had offered to watch Lily during the hearing, arranging a playdate with her son Leon to distract from the day's significance. Lily, showing remarkable intuition, hugged her mother tightly before we left. "You're the bravest mommy," she whispered in Katie's ear. The courthouse loomed imposing and cold. Jessica Turner met us at the entrance, her confident presence immediately calming. "Remember," she said as we passed through security, "speak clearly, stick to facts, and if you need a break, just let me know." The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lighting that cast everyone in an unflattering pallor. Greg sat at the defendant's table wearing a suit that seemed a size too large, projecting an image of a harmless, ordinary man. The shock came when our mother entered and seated herself directly behind him. "She's actually supporting him," Katie murmured, disbelief coloring her voice. "Stay focused," Jessica advised quietly. "This isn't unexpected." The hearing proceeded with clinical efficiency. Greg had been released on bail pending trial, a fact that had kept us all on edge. His attorney, a slick man with an expensive watch and practiced sympathy, argued that the incident was isolated and exaggerated. "My client has no prior record of violence," he emphasized. "Ms. Thompson has a documented history of anxiety and depression following the birth of her special needs child. We believe she may have misinterpreted normal household tensions." I felt Katie stiffen beside me, her breathing quickening. Under the table, I squeezed her hand. When it was Katie's turn to speak, her voice started barely above a whisper, but grew stronger with each sentence. She detailed the progression of abuse from controlling behavior to verbal assaults, culminating in physical violence toward both her and Lily. "He told me no one would believe me," she said, looking directly at the judge. "He said a mother who couldn't protect her disabled child didn't deserve custody." Greg's attorney attempted to undermine her testimony, suggesting she had fabricated evidence to gain sympathy and financial support. "Isn't it true that your mother, who knows you best, believes you have been experiencing delusions?" Before Jessica could object, Katie replied with unexpected steadiness. "My mother has always valued appearances over reality. She chose to believe Greg because acknowledging the truth would reflect poorly on her parenting." When the videos were presented, the courtroom fell silent. Greg's voice, captured clearly on the recordings, threatened both Katie and Lily with graphic violence. The most damning clip showed him grabbing Lily's arm and twisting when she couldn't complete a simple task fast enough. Greg's composure cracked as the evidence mounted. He began interrupting, accusing Katie of manipulation, his face reddening with barely contained rage. "She edited those videos. She's turning my own words against me. That's not how it happened." The judge ordered him to control himself, but the damage was done. His mask had slipped in precisely the way Jessica had predicted it might. When the hearing concluded, the judge granted a permanent restraining order and denied Greg any contact with Katie or Lily. Criminal charges for assault and child endangerment would be pursued separately. As we gathered our belongings, I noticed our mother approaching, her expression unreadable. "Katie?" she began, her voice carrying that familiar note of disapproval. "I hope you're satisfied with the spectacle you've created." Jessica stepped between them. "Mrs. Thompson, this is not the time or place." My mother's gaze shifted to me. "You've always encouraged her worst instincts, Amber. Now you've helped her destroy a good man's reputation." "A good man wouldn't hurt a child, Mum," I replied, keeping my voice low but firm. "If you can't see that, then you're not welcome in our lives either." Something flickered across her features, perhaps surprise at my directness. "You'll regret this decision when reality sets in. Taking care of Katie and that child won't be the romantic rescue mission you imagine." Katie, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. "Her name is Lily, Mom. Your granddaughter has a name, and she deserves better than being called that child by her own grandmother." Our mother's lips thinned to a bloodless line. "When this falls apart, don't come crawling back." She turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Outside the courthouse, Katie suddenly stopped walking, leaning against a pillar for support. "She's never going to change, is she?" she asked, her voice small. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, mindful of her healing injuries. "Probably not, but we're changing. That's what matters." As we drove home, Katie stared out the window, lost in thought. Finally, she turned to me. When Greg was arrested that night, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. But I was still waiting for someone to take control again to tell me what to do next. She paused. I don't want to live that way anymore. What do you want, Katie? I asked, realizing I'd never really asked her that before. I want Lily to grow up knowing her worth isn't determined by what she can or can't do physically. I want to finish my degree. I want to stop being afraid. She met my eyes. I want us to be a real family, the kind that builds each other up instead of tearing each other down. I felt something shift between us, the last vestiges of our old patterns giving way to something healthier, more equal. Then that's what we'll do, I promised. One day at a time. When we arrived home, Lily was waiting with a handmade card. Mommy won, she announced, having somehow intuited the outcome. Her smile, so rare just weeks ago, now came easily and often. As I watched Katie embrace her daughter, I realized we had all won something precious that day. Not just a legal victory, but the chance to redefine what family meant on our own terms. 1 year passed more quickly than I could have imagined. The seasons changed outside my apartment windows, marking the passage of time as our small family found its rhythm. What had started as an emergency shelter had transformed into a true home for all three of us. The most visible change was in our living space. With the help of friends and specialized contractors, we had renovated my apartment to accommodate Lily's needs. Doorways were widened, bathroom fixtures lowered, and kitchen cabinets modified with pull-down shelving. What began as necessary adaptations became thoughtful design improvements that made the space more functional for everyone. Katie had completed her first semester in a part-time interior design program, discovering a talent for creating accessible living spaces inspired by our own renovations. Her professors particularly praised her project, proposing universal design elements for urban apartments. I keep thinking about all the families like ours, she explained one evening as she showed me her latest designs. People shouldn't have to retrofit their homes in an emergency. The confidence in her voice, the passion in her eyes, these were new. The Katie who had appeared at my door that night, broken and terrified, had been replaced by a woman who spoke her mind and made her own decisions. Her arm had healed, though it sometimes ached before rain, a permanent reminder of what she had survived. I had arranged a flexible work schedule that allowed me to be home when Lily returned from school. My company, impressed by my dedication, despite personal challenges, had promoted me to creative director, a position that came with both increased responsibility and greater autonomy. But the most remarkable transformation had been Lily's. The fearful child who flinched at sudden movements now greeted each day with enthusiasm. Her new school, with its robust inclusion program, had recognized and nurtured her artistic abilities. Her watercolor paintings decorated our refrigerator, bright splashes of color reflecting her emerging confidence. Dr. Patel had recommended an art therapy program specifically for children who had experienced trauma. There Lily found both healing and community among peers who understood her experiences without explanation. Her therapist Martina had organized an exhibition of the children's artwork at a local gallery where Lily's painting of a family of butterflies emerging from cocoons had sold to an anonymous buyer. "Do you think the person who bought my painting will hang it somewhere nice?" Lily asked as we prepared dinner one evening. "I'm certain they will," I assured her, remembering how I had slipped the gallery owner my credit card information with instructions to mark the painting as sold to an anonymous collector. The painting now hung in my office, a daily reminder of Lily's resilience. Katie had begun dating again cautiously and on her own terms. David Wilson, a special education teacher from Lily's school, had asked her to coffee after a parent-teacher conference. Their relationship developed slowly, with David demonstrating remarkable patience and respect for Katie's boundaries. He asked if he could meet you officially. Katie told me one night after Lily had gone to bed. "He says any man in Lily's life should pass the Aunt Amber test." I laughed. "I like him already." The legal battles had largely resolved in our favor. Greg had eventually accepted a plea deal for reduced charges, resulting in a 2-year prison sentence and mandatory counselling. The restraining order remained permanent, and regular check-ins with our caseworker ensured the system didn't forget us once the immediate crisis had passed. Our mother had maintained her distance for several months after the trial, occasionally sending stiff birthday cards to Lily with impersonal gift cards enclosed. Then around the 9-month mark, something shifted. She called Katie, the conversation brief and awkward, but lacking the usual recriminations. She asked about Lily's school, Katie reported afterward, confusion evident in her voice. She actually used her name. Small steps followed. A request for current photos. a tentative invitation to lunch that Katie declined, but countered with an offer of coffee in a public place. Our mother had accepted the meeting lasting exactly 30 minutes and consisting mostly of surface-level pleasantries. "Do you think she's changing?" Katie asked me afterward. "I think she's realizing what she stands to lose," I replied honestly. Whether that constitutes real change remains to be seen. The true test came when Katie suggested our mother attend Lily's spring art showcase at school. To everyone's surprise, Sarah Thompson arrived precisely on time, wearing a conservative dress and carrying a small gift bag. Lily, ever perceptive, approached her grandmother with cautious curiosity. "Did you come to see my paintings?" Our mother nodded stiffly. "I did. Your mother says you're quite talented." "I can show you how to mix colours if you want," Lily offered, extending an unexpected olive branch. "It's really easy once you know the tricks." Something in our mother's expression softened fractionally. "I'd like that." That afternoon, watching my niece patiently demonstrate watercolour techniques to my mother, I witnessed what might have been the first genuine interaction between them. Sarah Thompson would never be a warm, nurturing grandmother, but perhaps she could learn to see Lily as a person worthy of respect rather than a problem to be managed. "She's trying," Katie said as we drove home. "That's something, isn't it?" "It is." I agreed. "Just remember, her effort doesn't obligate you to anything. We maintain boundaries based on behaviour, not intentions." Katie smiled. "When did you get so wise?" "Probably around 2 a.m. a year ago," I replied, when I had to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. As spring bloomed into summer, we celebrated Lily's 8th birthday with a small party in the community garden behind our apartment building. David helped Katie hang streamers while I frosted cupcakes and arranged presents. Lily's friends from school arrived with handmade cards and excited chatter. Our mother came too, arriving exactly at the stated time, with a carefully wrapped package containing an adjustable easel designed for wheelchair users. She didn't stay long, but she called Lily by name and even managed a brief, awkward conversation with David. That evening, after the guests had departed and Lily had fallen asleep surrounded by new art supplies, Katie and I sat on the balcony with glasses of wine. "Did you ever imagine we'd be here?" she asked, gazing at the city lights. "Not specifically," I admitted. "But I always hoped we'd find our way to something better than what we grew up with." Katie leaned her head against my shoulder, a gesture that had become comfortable over our year together. "I used to think family was something you were born into, something you had to accept no matter how much it hurt. Now I know it's something you build person by person, choice by choice." I thought about the journey that had brought us here, the middle-of-the-night decision that changed everything, the slow, painful process of healing, the small victories that accumulated into a life worth living. "Sometimes life gives you the opportunity to redefine what family means," I said, squeezing Katie's hand. "I think the greatest gift we can give Lily isn't freedom from hardship, but the knowledge that her value is never conditional, never something she has to earn through perfection or compliance. And that's something neither Mum nor Greg could ever understand." Katie nodded. "She knows she's loved exactly as she is. That's everything." As we sat in comfortable silence, I reflected on how far we had come. The road ahead would have its challenges, certainly. There would be difficult days, setbacks, moments of doubt. But we would face them together, this family we had chosen to build stronger, for having been tested, wiser for having survived. Sometimes the most meaningful families are the ones we create in the aftermath of heartbreak, pieced together from broken parts to form something more beautiful than what existed before. Like Lily's watercolours, where colours bleed into one another to create something unexpected and vibrant, we had transformed our pain into connection, our fear into courage. And that perhaps was the most profound victory of all. What would you do if faced with a midnight choice between family loyalty and doing what's right? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if this journey touched your heart, please like, subscribe and share to help others find their courage too. Remember, sometimes the family that saves us isn't the one we're born into, but the one we choose to build. Thank you for witnessing our story.